Good morning and welcome. Welcome to Presence of Light with Charlie Riverman Bergeron here in the southwest coast of Maine, right in the Mount Agamenticus watershed. I come to you live every Friday morning with messages, morning Valerie, that come to me as I awaken in the morning. This is not something I do a lot of preparation for other than spend maybe an hour and a half writing and listening to the guidance of the message for the week, really. And today's message is the word that I awakened with this morning was willingness. And it had nothing to do with my dreams. My dreams lately have been very, very dramatic. And maybe some of you are having dramatic dreams as well. And they're revealing a lot of things, excuse me. Um, they're revealing a lot of things in our past that need to be released, that we are revisiting in order to bring them to our conscious awareness and realize we no longer need to carry those forward with us. So this morning's title is Willingness or Resistance to Truth. And we can take that in a number of directions. However, last week, as many of you who were here last week or listened to last week's talk remember that I've been talking about moving into the new paradigm. And this morning, it's a continuance. This doesn't just happen for one moment. We have this aha moment. It starts to begin a flow, a pattern, if you will, of moving in a forward direction and leaving behind what is no longer suitable for the future. And this hinges really on our willingness to do this. And many of us are realizing that that's why we're here right now, is to do this, to be the way showers for others, to be the pillars of light for others. And yet, as we do this, the last part of the title is there is a resistance to truth. What does that mean? Oh my goodness, truth. What is truth these days? It's a question that all of us have. What is the truth? And the truth that I'm talking about really has to do with truth within ourselves. What is the truth of our lives? What is the truth of what's happened to us? And how do we look at that from a place where sometimes the pain is so severe, it's overwhelming? How do we release that? How do we come into a place of willingness to look at it? So this is, again, all about moving into the new paradigm and realizing what can or can't be, brought forward. So this morning, as I started to listen to my guides, it's always funny how I start with no thought at all, and then the higher self in communication with so many other wisdom keepers in the universe and in the spiritual realms. We just join hearts and the words flow. And so I can't take full credit for this. This is not, this is a collaborative, if you will, of wisdom that flows through the universe and we all can tap into. And I hope that each of you learn to trust that. It's a challenge, but in this new movement, we need to trust what's coming from within us, almost more than what's coming from outside of us. And know that if what's coming forward from within us is really negative and harmful, then we need to seek help. Uh, because we are these beautiful beings of peace, light, and love. And that disturbance needs to be um, settled down so that we can override who we truly are over that pain and that trauma that we've endured in a lifetime. So this is where we are. This is where we are. Are we in a place of willingness, or are we in a place of resistance to truth? And these two words come to me as polar opposites. Yet we can look at them also as a framework, and uh, a way of looking deep within ourselves. Where are we being willing to move forward? And where is the resistance to moving forward? This is the time. We have to move as not only individuals, but as a collective humanity. How do we achieve that collectiveness when there's so much divisiveness and separation in the world right now? And the key is, first, we have to become whole and unified within ourselves. And this is why we need to look at uh, what's going on within us and be able to recognize what no longer serves us moving into that new collective wholeness. And this is the design of humanity. This is, our ancestors. Um, if we look back into the distant beginnings of humanity, we see that we could see that many of us, many of our civilizations that we're digging up and finding right now, had great wisdom, had great teachings, had amazing abilities to come together, work together, and to tap into universal principles that we're still just beginning to understand right now. And so, as children, we were taught a different history. We were taught a history that uh, uh, applied to what the collective consciousness wanted us to uh, blend into. And I know that it can be a polar opposite to what we somehow know in our own bodies. And I struggled with this as in childhood, in grammar school and in high school. It wasn't easy for me to sit in a history or a biology class and listen to what they were saying, because I had this knowledge that that wasn't that wasn't the way it happened, or um, that that story is rewritten. And because I had some ability to, even as a child, to know things that other people just looked at me as if I was just crazy, that I was making this up. But as I grew older, I realized that no, I was understanding from a different dimension. And I had a big struggle with that. And until my near death experience, when my brain was sort of rewired, I call it, then the channels open up much wider. And so, even as children, some of you may have had, moments in school where you were doing something in history or geography, and you had this vision, or this, no, that's not right. Something tells me this is wrong. Somehow I know this, some the part of this. I remember in biology, I went to biology class and I said, wow, they're still just studying this. I mean, and it felt primitive. And I have no recollection of biology in this moment, but in that moment when I was faced with that um, project, I realized that somewhere there's a more advanced version of all of this. What we've seen in our lifetime, or at least in my lifetime, is in this short amount of time, we have come a long way through science, through critical thinking, and all of the things that we're doing. So if you look in the evolution of humanity, in a short period of time, we have closed a big gap, and we're still doing that. The issue now is, as we close that gap, are we going to close that gap and seal it in another, how do I say it, closed consciousness? Or are we going to continue to evolve? And this is again the shifting of the paradigm. And so many people want to hold this because this is their pride, their joy. They had the eureka. We found it. We're discovering this. They're alive with excitement. And the human mind has been trained over years to own what they think, not realizing we're just tapping into the quantum field of intelligence that has always existed. Even when we were living in a primitive form here, that it all existed then as well. It's just we weren't consciously aware of it, and now we are. So blah blah blah. That's my introduction to today. And bless you all for showing up. Good morning, BJ and Helen and Carrie, Anna. How are you? Bless you, dear. And Dawn and Jax and yeah, Valerie. So this is where we are. This is where we are. And if we look back into our collective human experience, there is all of this confusion and all of this painful chaos. And we bring it forward by remembering it. The parts of it that we don't want to remember, we stuff down and we block off with our energy. So it's not to say, well, it's passive. It's actually using part of our energy system to keep it from revealing itself to the conscious mind and for us to release it. And what's happened now is we've come to this point where there's so much that needs to be released and has to be released in order for us to evolve, that we're in this place of struggle. What's right? What's wrong? Who's up? Who's down? All of this. And so each of us now are being called to remember choices that we made in our earlier days. It could be very early childhood. It could be in utero. Yes, there is a consciousness awareness in the embryo. That flash of light when the sperm hits the egg is the light of who we are, coming into a very primitive, I don't want to call it electromagnetic, but light source being into this world, into this dimension. And from that point on, we are collecting information. We don't have a brain, we don't have a body. But what did I read yesterday? Something that the heart actually beats before there's blood in the system, in our system. So, we're learning parts of this that now technology and science and is just discovering, because we have the ability to do that. And we're realizing that we're alive from the moment we are in the mother's womb. And even, this is even before that, but we're just sort of an electromagnetic light form. So the reality is our existence is far more than anything we've ever really thought about or been taught. And we're learning that. as that learning occurs, there are those who want to manipulate it and make it something that they think would be the ideal, when in reality the ideal unfolds on its own. It is the higher dimension of self, the higher dimension of creation, and part of the whole fractal of the universe and all of the quantum field that is really involved in this. We do not have the enough power to override the quantum field. Yet many scientists and many people do believe that we are entitled to do that. Silly humans, I say, silly humans. It's it's going to bring about a lot of change. Here is where our resistance comes. This is where our resistance starts to build a wall. And part of it is to protect ourselves from more um, damaging processes. Many of us are overwhelmed. Many of us have had a very tough road of what we would call life, whether it be abuse or whether it be illness or whatever would be um, unbearable emotionally or physical. And we've suffered many losses, and that is all held within our physical body and in our electromagnetic fields. I'm not an expert on this. I just listen to my guides as they come through and point out that this is where you are, Charlie. This isn't, and where you are is exactly where other people are. So I only refer to these things for you to look within yourself, find those places within yourself that need releasing or healing, and encourage you to be brave enough to take it on and know that there are other people, millions of other people doing the same thing simultaneously as you are. And this is part of our evolution and movement into what I've been guided to call the new paradigm. So, as we struggled as children, each of us are now being called to remember all of the choices we made throughout our lifetime. And the purpose is not for us to judge ourselves or to judge other people who may have been perpetrators or the causes of some of our pain and suffering, but to look at the choices we made as a result of those moments. So each of us carry a bundle of trauma with us, and it's kept safely locked in this little chamber within our beingness. And right now, the energies of the universe are so high, and within Mother Earth, it's so high. It's opening that. It's opening it. That sort of. I'm looking at a vault in a bank, and that door is now transparent, and and it's leaking out. Um, and this is where we're all being challenged. And the first thing is fight or flight. We go into fight or flight, and we want to stuff that down. We want to fix that. We don't want to see that. We don't want to address that. It's too painful. Whatever. It's bringing up but the releasing of it is really what is important. That we need to look at it. We need to send it love. We need to send it peace. We need to send it light. We need to forgive it. And when I say forgive it, it doesn't mean you eradicate all of the pain and suffering from it, but you allow it to go. You are forgiving it freedom to release. Thank you. And we need this releasing right now. And this is our time of releasing the resistance that we have to all of these things that have been traumatic to us both individually and collectively. And we're basically, by not doing that, what we're doing is we're overriding our ability to receive truth. And this is where we come back to the word truth, which it started with the word willingness and then and progressed to resistance. What's the opposite of willingness is resistance. And then what is it this is all about? Is it about the truth? And that was my journey this morning. So as we look at this, as I look at it within myself, I see myself in each of you. And so our resistance is really a natural process. If we didn't have that resistance, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. So it's a natural process of survival, and it's within our brains, and it can be triggered by so many different things. The triggering of it is the power that it's working. Yay, it's working, because what would happen if we didn't have resistance to a lot of what's going on around us? We'd be swallowed up by it. We would have no sovereignty left at all. We would just get sucked in and shape shifted into whatever. So the reality is resistance is important, and we're not going to give up resistance. But we need to shift our conscious awareness of when is resistance beneficial and when is resistance actually adding to the trauma that we have to pack away in these inner chambers of our hearts. So without fear, we wouldn't have survived, because that's our warning system. It tells us when something's dangerous, when we're being threatened. And the problem with too much fear is what it does, it blocks out the truth. Because when we go into fear, what we're thinking about now is our own survival. And when we focus within ourselves, our view of everything around us diminishes. And this is I'm just not talking from a scientific level. This is just logical. If we start to focus outside of ourselves and know that we're safe within ourselves, that we are powerful beings, that we are beings of light and love and peace, and our purpose here is to broadcast that, then everything starts to shift. How we react to everything, as far as being willing or resistant, changes. So what I'm trying to express to all of us today is that we have that power within us. It isn't something somebody gives us. It isn't something somebody teaches us. It isn't something that is so sacred that only if you practice yada, 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 you'll receive it. It's a natural process of being human versus animal versus tree versus fish. I'm not saying they don't have the same ability, but it's a different level. So for us, with these conscious minds, this is where we are, and we're being bombarded now by information. And when the information field is so cluttered, it's hard to think and see clearly. So, and what happens, it begins to trigger the inner wounds, the wounded self that is now rising within us to be released and healed. So, as you listen to me talk, I want you to think about yourself. Overstimulated. Yeah, we are overstimulated. And what you need to do is start to recognize where that overstimulation is coming from and how it's being channeled to you, and realize that you have the power to control and change the channel. So it's like a radio station. You can tune in to any radio station or any TV station you want, or you can just shut the damn thing down and say, I only need to know what is within a certain radius of my existence until I feel better. Because this is what's happening. Over informing us puts us into fight or flight. This is an old battle strategic. This is nothing new. This is as primitive as we have ever been. This is a primitive pattern that has been used to rule others for thousands, if not millions of years. And it's called fear. And it's not always looking like fear. But what fear does, it brings us down and in, and we are no longer in total relationship with the energy fields around us or each other. And we start to isolate. And when we isolate, then all we rely on is our own entelechy here, it's what's happening in our brain. And we are storytellers. We create stories. We write stories and talk stories. This is a story right here. This is how we communicate, is through stories. Those of you who work with energy, you know you don't need the story. You work with energy. You send the intention through the energy. It's a communication system, but it's not verbal. It doesn't have any noise. It doesn't have any sound. It's intention, and it's clearer and cleaner and always sent at a higher frequency. So now if you look at the world around us, we have machinery, and I'm just going to call it machinery because that's what it is. It's not alive, that can create that frequency. And is being used 24/7 around the world. And some of it is wonderful. It's a beautiful tool. However, we can take any tool, as innocent as and wonderful as the tool is, and create harm with it. It all depends on our intention. So here we are. I have a quote by Carl Jung, who says this: we cannot change anything until we accept it. I'll say that one more time. We cannot change anything until we accept it. And so we have to come to this place of acceptance, that all of this is occurring, that each of us individually have really not enough power to fight it or to shut it down. However, collectively, we do. And collectively, it isn't a war or a battle, it's just an awareness and realizing that, wait a minute, the message I'm receiving does not align with my heart. My head loves it because it goes into gameplay. It excites it. What is it doing to my heart? What is it doing to my emotional level? Am I feeling more anger, or am I feeling more peace? Am I looking at people and wanting to understand them in a loving manner? Or am I looking at people and wanting to keep my distance from them out of fear? Or am I questioning whether they're a good person or a potential killer? This is going on all the time within all of us. So the key is to come back to that balanced point where we can look at both and then make a decision that say, wow, I can see that person as my killer and I can see that person as my lover. Because the potential exists in all of us for that. But it doesn't make us that. That is all made here. We need to show up now as who we truly are. And when we do that, we change the way people see us. So, willingness is the challenge, and it becomes acceptance. And resistance becomes what we want to be true, but yet is only a mask to cover the pain and suffering of accepting our inner confusion and pain. What is the truth right now? What is the impact of truth on the past and future? And we'll read these questions. These are the questions that came up. Where does truth conflict with our thinking and behavior? As for a willingness to accept truth, it is a great challenge for us, both as individuals and in a collective community. All of us are experiencing this. And this is why we need to come back into our hearts, to ignite, to light the candle of light within us. And know that in this moment of our sovereignty, of the blessed experience of who we are in not only in human form, but in the quantum field around us. And realize that each one of us are equal, have the equal opportunity and potential to be or do whatever anybody else does. But it doesn't mean we're going to do that, because each of us have a purpose within ourselves. And it's trying to find that purpose within us that ignites the purpose in another, that makes us the most positive beam of light we can be. And it can be very simple, and it can be very convoluted. But each one of us need to find that self inside of us. And it's buried underneath all of that damage that we've received. My guy just saying, look at yourself as a battleship out at sea. And you've taken all these hits from airplanes and submarines, and you're banged up, but you're still floating. You're still coming home home to port. Yeah, you lost a lot of the crew, you took on a lot of water, you're pumping it daily, but you're still coming home to port. And that's their vision for you. You're coming home to port. And once you get back to port, you'll be able to find a place to at least sit still out of the war, out of the confusion, the chaos. And you'll begin to heal again. And you'll begin to rebuild yourself in ways that allow you to become bright and shiny and brilliant once again, and useful and purposeful. Course in Miracles, a little card that I don't know if you can read it, but I'll put it up there. Every living thought is true. Everything else is an appeal for healing and help, regardless of the form it takes. Regardless of the form it takes. And that's from text, page 215, if anybody is interested in looking it up. What is that saying to us? Is that beyond all of this that's outside of us, if we come into our hearts into the world of all the potentiality of all miracles. We can create those. And that what we do outside of that many times is just an appeal for healing. Marianne Williamson says, if we drag the past into the present, we program the future to be like the past. Miracles occur in the present. So you can see, if we're focused on the future, then part of us moves out of the present. If we're battling with the past, part of us is occupied, protecting ourselves from the past. What happens to the present? What happens to the present is our ability to create miracles is diminished. In that diminishing, we, in many ways, become weaker rather than stronger. And we grab at straws trying to make ourselves stronger, when all the time the power is within us. If we let go, if we are willing to let go, to forgive the past, to release it, to put it in the history book, the Akashic record, it's there. We don't need to carry it with us every day. We do not need to read it every day. We need to come to a place where we forgive others as well as ourselves for the stories, for the lack of ability to endure the pain, and know that we don't have to bring this any further than where we are. And that opens up the gateway to the truth. Because as long as we're focused on hiding something we don't want to see, we are saying, I don't want to know the truth, because the truth overwhelms me. I am giving my power away to something that no longer exists except in my mind. Take a deep breath. Let us take today's messages and dive deeper into our hearts this week. Let's search for the true story of who we are, of our lives, our personal lives. Let us be willing to release forever all of the moments, all of the stories we created about them in order to protect ourselves from the many painful experiences of our truth. Do not fear your truth. Yes, it is painful many times, but there are many loving moments in your truth. There are many wonderful journeys in your truth. And that's what we learn to focus on is the light of our truth, the love of our truth, the peace of our truth. And we learn that that outweighs the pain and the suffering. That it's only our focusing on protecting ourselves, wearing the masks, protect ourselves. It works. It does work. Protects us. So there is a purpose for protection. But within ourselves, in our true self, there is no disease. We are light and we are love. And we need to find our way back to that light and love. And that's the shifting of the paradigm. Out of the darkness into the light. Let us be brave and bold enough to change our perceptions of the teachings we have received, especially those teachings that don't align with our magnificence. You are magnificent. Can you tap into that? Can you feel a glimpse of that? In the midst of your darkness, in the midst of your pain and suffering, can you see that flicker of the candlelight that says, you are magnificent? So in closing, I ask you to make your choices with your hearts. And in doing that, the energy of the future will change. And it will become more coherent. It will become more flexible, just like the quantum field. And we will learn to flow in that energy and not worry about bumping in or taking somebody's space or somebody taking our space. We will stand, or we will be in what we call as humans our sovereign self. We will know who we are and trust that. And we won't have to worry about taking sides. We're one humanity. We're not all of this separation. The separation is what we created. I have a saying that I say all the time that I spoke to a Maori man who came to me in the dream time and who is trying to entice me or bully me into joining with him in his teachings. And I said to him, do you remember when we were one and chose to separate, thinking it would be fun? And I looked him in the eye as he was doing the haka in front of me in order to intimidate me. And I turned around and I walked away. And this is the story of those who want to continue in that dream state. And that's perfectly fine. I bless them all. But it's our journey to return to our sovereignty and who we are before we chose to separate. That just came in right now. I wasn't, that's not in my show notes. What's in my show notes is, it is knowing that the choices we make within our hearts are the energy that will change the future. May you be safe and well on this journey, and know that you are loved. Take a deep breath. Relax. Know that in the energy vibrations of today's talk, that the energies have reached deep inner parts of yourself that needed to be reminded of the beauty and the grace of that which they are. So that you may rise within yourself. Come to know yourself as this beautiful divine being of light and love and peace. As we come together once again in wholeness, in beauty, in wonder, and create miracles together. I am complete for this morning. I thank you all for being here. It's always a joy, and it's so wonderful to see each of you here, and I will always send you love as I read through, and if you need assistance, I will send blessings and offerings. And know that this journey you're on, you're not alone. There are many of us, mostly who won't speak a lot about it, but then some of us who just can't shut their mouths. And it doesn't make anyone better than anyone else or wiser than anyone else, because the truth belongs to everyone, not just a few. The truth is within you. It's within your heart. I love you. I thank you. I respect you. I am you. You are me. We are unity. In unity we began. In unity we are. And in unity we will continue. We are one humanity. Bless you all and have a wonderful week. Enjoy this full moon that I believe is considered a blue moon, but not a blue moon by the modern technology of it. It has to do with moons in the seasons rather than moons in the month. And I'll read up on that a little further. That was an interesting note I read this morning. So whatever you believe, whether it's a blue moon, a green moon, a yellow moon, enjoy the energy. It's the light. It's the full light of the sun being gleaned upon you from our beloved grandmother moon. May she fill your hearts with the love of the divine feminine. Bless you all. Have a great week. We'll see you next Friday. And who knows what River Man will speak about next. Love you all. Thank you, Humanity Healing, once again for this opportunity to be here and share. Bless you all.